Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese here as always with Nima Tavali. So now officially the 2022-23 club season is over. Unfortunately, it didn't have the ending that we hoped for, especially for Inter fans who saw their team lose 1-0 to Manchester City in the Champions League final in Istanbul. Really unlucky defeat for Inter, who deserve so much more from that final. We'll be reviewing the match, all the fallout, how and why did Inter fall so agonisingly short in this final? Where did Inter go from here? What about Romelu Lukaku, who has become fairly or unfairly the scapegoat of the defeat after missing that open goal to equalise? What about Italian football as a whole? We've been in 3 finals. People have talked about Italian football being back, but 3 defeats. So yeah, very difficult end to the season for Serie A. Elsewhere, we will remember the life of former AC Milan president Silvio Berlusconi, who has died aged 86, the most successful football president in history in Italy, the most successful football president of all time in the world at the time of him leaving Milan. So we will talk about what he did at Milan on this pod today. Spezia have been relegated after losing the play-out to Verona in a thrilling game on Sunday evening. We'll discuss that. And also, finally, Italy's under-20s lose in the World Cup final to Uruguay. Yet another final defeat for an Italian team. We are cursed in finals at the moment. So lots to talk about. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode, which we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including our Q&A weekly episode every Tuesday, where we answer all the questions sent in from our Patreons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. And for all of you listening on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow and a subscribe to us, as it really helps us grow. I should just add before we start that as the club season is over, we will still be continuing as normal on the Italian Football Podcast. We will still have this free weekly episode every Monday, and we will have the Q&A every Tuesday. On Thursday, we will switch things up a little bit. What we will do is our Thursday show will become a transfer show throughout the summer, like we always do during the summer, and we will be bringing on guests, transfer journalists mainly, to discuss the transfer market, to give us insight of what is happening, who's moving, who's joining, who's leaving the big clubs. And also we will be doing analysis, of course, on the transfers as they happen, including special reaction podcasts when a big transfer happens, or when an interesting transfer story happens. We will be doing that. So things will continue as normal, and as usually happens, there's actually more interest in the summer when there's no football than there is during the actual season. The football, Calcio, it never sleeps. So we will be doing plenty still during the summer. And also, don't forget, there's still a lot of international football going on. Italy in the Nations League coming up this week. Also, the Under-21 Euros is about to start. There's the Women's World Cup. There's other youth tournaments. So there is a lot of football still going on that we will be talking about. Okay, then, let's get into the show and let's start talking about Inter in the Champions League final. Okay, Nima. So Inter lose 1-0 in Istanbul to Manchester City. A goal from Rodri midway through the second half. My overwhelming emotion from this game, and I'm not an Inter fan, is that if you're an Inter fan, to be very proud of your team's performance, but also, Inter could have won this final. I mean, they were unlucky.
They were. But I think the overwhelming feeling of all these 4 finals that Italian teams have lost in the last 3 weeks is the same. Very well organized, unlucky to come short at the very end, but there is a qualitative difference overall. in each one of these finals that made its presence felt. And I think that's why Italy didn't win any of these games and finals. But it shows that Italian football is still very competitive, that Italian football is amongst the best in the world. But when it comes at club level, especially, money matters. Finances matter. And if you look at how you need depth to compete on several fronts, and the Italian teams don't have that depth. They just don't have the money to have that depth. And that's why they fall short, generally speaking, without going into the details. Because I think a lot of it is, you look at Roma, look at Fiorentina, very, very close. All very close, probably created more chances than each one of their final opponents, finalist opponents. But overall, that quality, football is about scoring goals. And the quality up front just isn't there for the Italian teams. And that costs money they don't have. And the others do. And that's where we are. But I think overall, this was very, very tight. I'm incredibly proud of Inter as an Interista. I'm not speaking as a journalist here, but speaking as an Interista. This is what this Inter did from March and onwards, when we got into the business end, and the way that they delivered and keep winning. I mean, what is it? 11 wins out of 13 in the last 13 games across all competitions, and doing so, rotating and showing a team spirit and unity. That is the most important thing, because Inter fans are now fully united behind this team. These players, they really respect and love this team now in a way, because Inter has always been a very fragmented fan base. A lot of disagreements. We're not like a fan base like Juventini, who are soldatini, as Casano would say it. You're united. It's Juve and all that. And Milan the same way. Is not as fragmented as Inter fans are. Inter fans are incredibly fragmented. But when they unite, when they decide that we rally behind something, that doesn't happen very often. It's happened maybe 3-4 times. Twice, really, in my lifetime. Once, of course, famously under Jose Mourinho, and this time around as well. And the way that Inter played, the way that they suffered, as we're going to talk about the tactics especially, I kept banging on about it's important to know how to suffer, and Inter did. They worked so hard, but the last quality, that final killer instinct that you need in the final third to win these trophies, isn't there. Just wasn't there.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that about Inter. I thought the game plan was spot on. The selective pressing was perfect.
Oh, actually, so you mean that there is such a thing as selective pressing? Because I was told, according to some people, that Inter just went out and had fun, because there's no such thing as selective pressing. Some Irish Spanish name sounding moron on The Independent said something really, really stupid about how Inter was just basically vibes, and didn't understand. And that was in his piece. He said at some points one of the strikers presses and the other doesn't. Selective pressing. Imagine that. But yes, yeah. Inter have selective pressing, and they were tactically perfect, because Simone Inzaghi showed he passed his exam with flying colours. There was nothing tactically he could have done more.
No, I mean, I'm surprised. I mean, they surprised City by pressing as high up as they did. It wasn't a high press, but it was a middle press. And I've never ever seen City's midfield struggle so much to get through that middle third of the field. I mean, a lot of this game was played in the middle third. Yes, of course, City had more of the possession, but actually not that much possession, not by City's levels. I think it was 59% at the end of the game, something like that, which is, but for City is not a lot. But they struggled. They couldn't get through that middle third. And you said that Inter suffered. I don't think they really did suffer that much. Not sustained. There was very little sustained pressure.
When I mean suffer, I mean the work without the ball. To do that selective pressing that Inter did down the flanks with Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Bastoni, Darmian, that it costs so much energy to do that. it's painful to do that and to be able to sustainably do that for 90 minutes. Which
City had no idea. Yeah, for sure. City had no ideas. They couldn't. Their passing was off. City, totally. I've never seen players like Rodri and Gundogan pass as badly. And even at sometimes they were kicking the ball away. City never do that. They never kick the ball away and get rushed into pop just to putting it in down the bylines into space. They always find a man.
It was a tactical masterclass.
It was a tactical masterclass. He doesn't. You don't always have to win for it to be a tactical masterclass.
No.
It was a tactical masterclass. And
I think people need to separate a few things. Tactical masterclass is not the same thing as formation or personnel choice. I think personnel choice wise, I think it was a mistake to not start Lukaku. I think it showed, because I think the presence of Lukaku when he comes on, he's not an impact sub and he's never going to be. I think Dzeko just ran himself into the ground in the 55th minute, and I think that was expected. I would rather have started Lukaku, otherwise to see just to have that out, to see how they would have reacted.
Yeah. I guess we'll never 100% know. We'll come on to Lukaku. We've got a segment on that, and I'll give my feelings on part also what you've just said there. But just in terms of, I just think team as a whole, in terms of the tactics, they limited City to so few chances. If you're looking at clear chances, for me, the only real clear big chance that City had was Foden at 1-0 when he ran through and he should have scored. And it was a good save, but it wasn't a good finish. It wasn't in the. He didn't put it in the corner. He didn't hit it hard enough. Apart from that, there were no clear chances. The first half there was Silva when DiMarco backed off too much and he curled it and he went just wide. But that was, I wouldn't say that wasn't a clear chance. It was just a really good bit of play. Not the best defending from DiMarco, and he did a bit of magic and he curled it. And then Haaland's chance when he was at a very tight angle and Onana stuck his hand out. That's a half chance. I think that's not a clear chance. It's a half to a 3/4 chance. And apart from that, the goal was not a clear chance. There were so many bodies in the way with the goal they scored, and it came from a very fortuitous. Bastoni makes the original error, of course, to let Bernardo Silva get in behind. That's the error that Inter make. But in terms of the actual created chance, he puts it across the box and deflects right into the part. It's lucky how it come to Rodri's feet, and then you have three bodies in the way plus the goalkeeper. I'm not sure what the XG would have been on that, but it would have been low because you've got all those bodies in the way. You expect a body to block that, but he just found that tiny little gap in the corner. Çalhanoğlu happened to move out of the way of the ball, and it went in. If you're limiting City to that few chances and that few, if you look at where City had the ball in this game, a lot of the time it was in areas where they couldn't hurt Inter. Inter kept City away from the dangerous areas, and
they did.
They made City look ordinary. They looked an ordinary team. They looked an ordinary team, and I know some people say, and I've seen it in the English media, and this is what always happens whenever England or an English team play bad. Is instead of giving credit to the opposition, they generally say, "Well, we played badly." That's why.
But that's the usual. That's the usual nonsense. That's the usual nonsense that is part of the drivel that we hear about how superior, and this is what I meant when I was on TalkSport with that guy who
which was brilliant, by the way,
who was so triggered. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. This notion that when things, if English teams or the English national team doesn't win, it's because England were bad, not because the others were good, and that's the headline that of all of this behavior, all the prem facie that we talk about is it's coming home, not the song itself. It's a complete red herring to talk about the song itself, because the song itself is actually a brilliant song, which the lyrics are about suffering and longing, which every football fan in the world can identify with. But the slogan "it's coming home" has become like the brand name of all this stupid behavior that we've been seeing nonstop for 20, 30 years, which is incredibly disrespectful to everyone and anyone that isn't, that isn't English, essentially. It's so chauvinistic, this notion that when things are on the up and up, and when we deliver, we win. Otherwise, something is wrong, or the referee. Do you know what I mean? Like this kind of this nonsense. You know, how many Italy and Brazil players get into the England team? How many Inter Milan Juve players get into the
No,
Brighton
absolutely.
team?
I'm sure City were a little bit nervous. I mean, I think they were a bit nervous. You could see. I'm sure that was part of it. I mean, we saw Edison. I never see Edison give the ball away as many times as he did in the first half. That obviously you can put that down to nerves. You know, the big occasion, of course, that plays a role. But City, you know, it was down to Inter more than anything else for making City look ordinary because Inzaghi got his tactics spot on.
Because this is how good Simone Inzaghi is. He is when he has a united team behind him, as he has now. You see, this is the thing though with Simone Inzaghi, which there are different styles of management. Simone Inzaghi doesn't do management by fear like Antonio Conte or Max Allegri. He's much more modern in his approach. This kind of management by consent, meaning if you win the hearts and minds of people by appealing to their intellect, once you win them over, they will die for you. And you saw that with. To some extent, that's what Mourinho did, although Mourinho built this kind of siege mentality, us against the world. But that's, this is what you see with this Inter. I mean, when Bastoni says that, yes, tactically speaking, I'm a Guardiola player, but I'm an Inzaghiano, I fight for my coach. This is what Inzaghi's built. He's playing a football he's very versatile. It is a football that is solid defensively, but Inter can also control games and dictate midfield and control the midfield. Superior passing, patient build-up. Inter are very, very patient under this coach and this style of play. And I think they're onto something. This is how they need to play. No more tinkering about. And they need to have a mercato accordingly as well.
Yeah,
because I think
we'll come to that. Yeah, we'll come to that, Nima, about where Inter go next. But just sticking on the theme of how Inter played and everything, and just want to underline just how proud I think Inter, the players, the fans, the team should be, because everybody, as we said, and I would invite everybody to go onto Nima's Twitter and see what he posted out on. Was it Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Before the final. In fact, I tweeted it out. Go onto my Twitter, and you'll find the link anyway. And it's hilarious because everybody was expecting City to hammer Inter. Let's not pretend what this Martin Samuel was saying about, I haven't heard anybody say that.
I told him, I'm not responsible for what you hear. I'm responsible for what I say. I mean, no, but it's like it's saying this notion that as if that is some kind of evidence. It's like, well, you live in your bubble. I have open eyes. I see. Everyone sees. Like literally, everyone with even a semi-sentient potato knows what I'm talking about. It's embarrassing that he would even take that line of saying, "Well, I've never seen that," and it's always negative. It's like, no, it's not, and there's nuances to it, and also it's got nothing to do with the.
No, but he also said that nobody in the English media was saying that they were all saying it would be a close game. You haven't seen anybody say that it would be a big win. Well, I'm sorry.
Then let's read up. Then let's read up on just a few examples.
I've got a list of them. We had.
I know you do, and that's the one I was referring to.
Craig Hope of the Daily Mail, who said that Inter have no chance of. Yeah, he called them BA, bang average. He called Inter bang average. And
called Lautaro bang average. Inter Milan have no chance against Real Madrid or Man City in Istanbul. Their derby win showed just how poor Serie A is. Inter have no chance. Their semi was a masterclass. Yeah. The Milan derby was a plaster cast. They were better at kicking each other than the ball. Enjoy tonight's game. It is the final. Paul Merson, Sky. There's no way in a million years.
Was the final, yeah. The 4-0 defeat was the final. Paul Merson, there's no way in a million years Inter can beat Man City. Craig Burley, who absolutely detests Italian football, like you can just see it in his just how much he hates Italian football. The final is going to be very one-sided. Inter haven't beaten the strongest opposition to get to the final. Craig Burley again. Serie A is a league of has-beens.
Yeah. I mean, Jamie O'Hara, Talk Sport. Inter have absolutely no chance against this Man City team. Harry Redknapp, Man City will win, no doubt. My favorite, though, I got to say, is Football 365 with their ridiculous article about how this is the biggest mismatch in Champions League history. Jason Cundy, Inter would get torn apart if City played like they did against Real. Paul Hayward, Daily Mail, Inter simply can't win 1-0. James Benger, CBS, Man City will win 3-0. I don't give Inter even a chance. What is less than a chance? A shot. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of the dribble.
I noted these ones down. That was just like a day after the semi-final. I stopped counting after that because I didn't have enough time. It was too many.
No, there's too many. No, exactly. It's a full-time job.
So we went from this to obviously Inter lost 1-0, but I mean it was so close. And when you look at the difference in finances, yes, it should have been a 5-0 win for Man City in finances. When you've got Man City that have spent over 2 billion in the last, versus what in the last 5 years, Inter are 55th in Europe for net spend. 55th in Europe. Just let that sink in. Jack Grealish cost more than the entire Inter team. The entire Inter team that started in the final on Saturday. Grealish cost, I think, by quite a distance more. So what Morata's done, Giuseppe Moratta, we have to give credit to him as well. But what he's done with a team, a lot of free transfers, a lot of loans, a lot of wheeling and dealing, having to sell players, star players like Lukaku originally 2 years ago, like Hakimi originally 2 years ago. Skriniar's going to go this summer. So what they've done is amazing. But so that's why I think Inter fans should be very, very proud, because this wasn't a fair contest in terms of the resources on offer, and also let's be honest, in terms of playing by the rules as well. We all know it's not we're not BT Sport. We're not going to do a 3-year program and ignore the big fat elephant that's in the room. City are charged with 115 offences. There's an asterisk that goes next to every single title that City have won during that period, and including this Champions League final. I'm not saying Inter are squeaky clean. They've had their issues as well. But, we're talking about levels here, and we're talking about what City have done. So Inter should be very, very proud, because to overcome this difference is, magnificent. And to deserve to win the final, that's what makes it really frustrating, Nima, because it was there. I felt it was there for the taking, and they just didn't take their chances.
No, they didn't. And that's where the quality, I think, shows. I think you need to have more, quality in the final third, and quality like that in the final third costs money. And I think Lautaro was too isolated. I still think Inter would have had more chances and maybe scored if Lukaku had started, because I think, again, Lukaku's not an impact sub. I don't think he's the kind of guy who needs minutes to get going and to continuously go against his defender. And Dzeko offered absolutely nothing in this regard. And this was a mistake by Inzaghi. But look, I understand the argument for and against. But by the time that Lukaku came on, Inter had put themselves in a position to win the game. So you could say, maybe they would have been winning by that point. But it's not that's exactly it, because I don't want to chase the game.
Losing.
That's what I'm saying. You shouldn't be chasing the game. Like Lukaku, when you're chasing a game, you don't bring Lukaku on. Like Lukaku's not that kind of.
But they weren't chasing the game, though. They were 0-0.
Well,
that's the point.
Yes, I know. But what I'm saying is that by that time they should have been 1-0 up. That was for me the game plan. I think the game plan, from that aspect, I disagree with Simone on. I wanted to see Lukaku start.
I can see that. Look, I know there's always going to be a debate. It's always going to be what ifs, isn't there, in football? That's just the name of the game. But I think that Inter, at the time that Lukaku came on, and I think it was before that. I think it was like the 55th minute, because he had cramps.
55th, yeah.
By the time of the 55th minute, I think Inter, right at that time, are feeling absolutely delighted with the way that the game was going, and they're thinking, right, we've got 35 minutes left of this game. We're 0-0, and now we've got Lukaku coming on to make the difference in the final third. And we'll come on to look at Lukaku in a bit, but just talking as a whole, Inter had the chances to win this game. Lautaro, when he should have cut back, Dimarco hitting the bar, Lukaku obviously missing an open goal. We'll come on to him, and blocking the header from Dimarco as well. But also there was a lot of occasions, and this is definitely a quality issue,
Yeah.
the final ball let
Yeah.
Inter down. Gosens' crossing was terrible after coming on.
Denzel Dumfries when Barella, I mean, his passing and awareness and technical
and Bellanova
ability.
as well. His crossing was
I mean, he's a
abysmal
young
as well.
kid. Like, this is what I mean. Like, you know, these things show.
Yeah.
And you know, Romelu Lukaku, like I said, he can still be a top level striker, but he'll never be world class again like he was on Antonio Conte.
But the XG in this game, 0.91 to Manchester City, 2.007 for Inter.
Yeah.
Now, that is unbelievable. I mean, how often do you see Man City have an XG of less than 1 for starters?
And how often do you see a team also in that situation create more and more higher quality chances against them? You know, that's what XG is. It's just a tool to, which I think the name is a bit, you know, misleading.
But it shows you the chance creation. It shows you the quality and the big chances created.
Yeah, it shows you the accumulative chance creation and the quality of the chances. And Inter did create good chances. Maybe not you know, at the end it was a little bit frantic, but yeah, it's been the story of a little bit of Inter season, hasn't it? Like, create chances but not have that finishing killer instinct.
Up until like March, then they suddenly started putting their chances away, and then it crept back in on the biggest.
But
biggest time.
That's because, you know, over the course of a season, these things show. You know, the quality makes itself shown, and I think that's what Inter lack the most. Inter need a killer in the box, and I think it's, for me, Edin Dzeko, thank you so much for these fantastic 2 years. You are a fantastic player in terms of football IQ, the quality, but you're 37 years old and it's time for you to leave. Yeah. Joaquin Correa, you should never have been signed. Arrivederci.
To be honest with you, all the attackers, it was the Inter attackers that let Inter down in this game. No one else. You know, I know some people have been saying, Çalhanoğlu didn't play very well. Barella was a little bit disappointing. You know, Bastoni, okay, should have done better on the goal. I mean, you know, that's all valid. But I think at the end of the day, it was Inter's attackers that cost in this game. Dzeko, Lautaro, Lukaku, those three. But in particular, Lautaro had the chance. But Lautaro, you know, we've had this debate so many times, you know, just what level is Lautaro at? And I think this, again, showed that Lautaro, he isn't elite level. He's a level below that.
It depends on what you expect him to be. He's not a striker. I've always maintained that he's a 9.5. He's a seconda punta. And as a seconda punta, he has no peers in the world. He is not a striker, because a striker, a killer, you score. Filippo Inzaghi was not perhaps the greatest player to play the game, but the brother did know how to put the ball into the back of the net. Like, do you know what I mean?
But he's playing in the front. But he's playing in the front too. He's playing in his position in this game, and you know he didn't perform. He didn't perform. Not scoring and not. It's just his overall play. I think I saw somewhere that he won 2 of his 10 duels in this game, and you know his he wasn't creating. You know, I mean, the chance that he had where what is that decision making? Why is he trying to shoot from that narrow angle when City made a mistake? I mean, I thought it was a terrible run by Lukaku. The pass to Lukaku wasn't on because Lukaku, he just doesn't have the IQ in the area to make the right run. He made a terrible run, but there was, I think was it Brozovic on the edge of the area?
I think it was Barella or Brozovic.
Brozovic, one of the two was free on the edge of the area. I mean, that was bad. And his overall game, he didn't do enough. And then Lukaku, who we'll come on to, as well, obviously missed the chances. So, I mean, I think it's Inter's attack that let them down in this game. And Lukaku, especially with his, I mean, if we're being frank, he's cost Inter 2 goals in this game.
No, I don't know. I don't think that the first goal where he was hit, the second one where he was, I don't think you can blame him on that, because it's like the ball, it was too close. It wasn't like people trying to make it like Alexis Sanchez in the Champions League a few years ago. I think that's unfair. But that first goal, the missed open goal thing, that's not good.
No, that is virtually unmissable. It's pretty much unmissable, that chance. I mean, there's only one place you can put that.
But this is what I mean. This is what I'm saying. He's not that impact sub. He needs to have minutes to get going, because he's got a big body. It takes a lot for him to get going. And when he's up and firing on all cylinders, then he scores that. And this is why I was against him coming on as a sub, because we've seen this throughout his tenure at Inter. He needs to get going. He's like a machine, a big machine that you need to fire up all engines before they can actually fire, and that's why he's not impact.
But I think his overall game, I think he caused trouble. I mean, stuff happened when he got the ball. His finishing was abysmal, but things did happen. Like he had when he went out onto I think it was on the left, and he dragged it wide. He had the one where he was on the right hand side, but then he shot straight at Edison. Obviously, then he was in the right place for let's say the wrong place for DiMarco's header, but the right place for the header.
I wonder if that goal would have been allowed, because when it first came, I was like, DiMarco's offside. Like that was my feeling.
No, he was on. DiMarco was onside. I checked that out. Yeah, okay. He was on. The header that came over, looped over, he was onside. Okay. He was onside. I don't know about the second phase, but the first phase, DiMarco.
Yeah, that's the first phase I was thinking about.
No, the first phase he was on. I checked that straight away. But yeah, I mean, the header. I mean, it's unbelievable. It was a microcosm of Lukaku's career.
Yeah.
When it matters in the big, let's call them global games, club and country. He bottles it. He bottles the moments, the big moments, the big chances. And we saw it in the World Cup versus Croatia for Belgium, where he missed like 3 or 4 of this level chances. But we've seen it so many times in his past. I mean, his record in the big matches, you can Google it. It's all there. His record in the big matches and the big teams. I mean, his record against the big 6 in the Premier League is terrible for what is supposed to be a top striker. But even in Serie A, even in his first spell, when he was one of the best strikers in the world, his record against the big teams, it wasn't at the level that you would expect for a player of Lukaku's level. And this is the biggest game of all, Champions League final, and I mean that you can't miss a chance like that. That takes it to extra time.
You need to score those. That
takes it to extra time, and I don't know. I mean, you probably favour Inter if it goes to extra time. Who knows?
I don't know. I felt I did a space at halftime with people, and I said, look, I still thought my feeling was that City were going to win this. It's like the similar kind of feeling without any other comparisons between them. But Uruguay against Italy, I felt Uruguay were in control, and that's how I felt about this game with City. I felt they were in control, even though.
Well, we'll come on to Italy under 20s. I think that's different. I think Italy under 20s.
No, I'm not. As I said, I'm just talking about the feeling Italy. I had watching this game.
Yeah, the feeling. Yeah.
Okay. I felt City were more in control than Inter, and I mean, so I can't. Of course, I'm disappointed, and of course, but more than anything, I am proud. This was. As an Interista, because I saw the last 3-4 weeks, ever since that, to be at the San Siro at the return leg when Inter were the home team against Milan and watch 70,000 sing that chant that is now forever etched in Inter folklore, that I've never seen the San Siro do that. Everyone around the stadium sing like that, and to reach the Champions League final when nobody expected it, to see Interisti from all over the world meet up for the first time in Milan, in different spots all over, in Milan, in Istanbul, throughout this season, to see everyone unite behind this team, and this club, and feel pride again, because we've not had much as Inter fans, much to be happy about, because yes, you've won minor trophies. But ever since the Scudetto, we weren't allowed to celebrate that because the way Conte left and Lukaku was sold and Hakimi was sold and all this nonsense that happened. This was a moment for Inter fans to come together and to feel pride again. And it was, and they did do exactly that. They made everyone proud. And now Inter are united in a way that I've not seen them. And you have a coach who wants to stay. You have... the finances look better than they have, despite the New York Times hit piece that we saw on a few days before the final, where one of the authors said that they were going to do a similar critical piece about Man City the day after. Instead, they did a piece talking about Ted Lasso, literally about Ted Lasso and Manchester City, which is it's embarrassing. But this is a hit piece.
They're trolling you, Nima. They were just trolling you.
It's embarrassing. And it is a hit piece. And I love how offended they get when they get called out. Because if you're going to do a news piece, news, clue is in the title. New. There was nothing new in that piece. No. It was just old, and it was completely
different. That's how they are, though.
But listen, it was not just that. If it was at least honestly, objectively, factually, contextualized. But it wasn't. They just made these ridiculous comparisons between Inter being state-owned and City being state-owned, as if the Chinese government has put €1 at Inter. If anything, the Suning stopped investing in Inter when the Chinese company invested in Suning to bail them out. But they didn't put that because that's not part of the agenda. So why let facts get in the way of a good agenda? And that's the New York Times generally, whether it's politics, finances, whatever it is. It's just par for the course with them. But, it is what it is. And then, of course, you had, that idiot on The Independent who couldn't, got absolutely destroyed by anyone who could read above a third grade level the day after. But it was, obvious.
They don't follow any football outside of the English Premier League. The majority, not
they
all
don't
of them,
do,
but the majority
of journalism.
The majority of the mainstream, the majority of the mainstream English media don't watch football. You can't analyze, even if you're trying to honestly analyze, teams, players from outside, your own league. If you don't watch them, it's just natural.
No, but it's not. But listen, even the teams that they do watch in the Premier League, they don't do journalism. They don't do anything critical. All they do is, they ask basically. They do they are unpaid.
No, they have a narrative.
Stenographers.
They have a narrative.
It's about protecting the EPL. It's about making it look as good as possible because we all feed off of it. There's no critical questions, nothing. Just look at the people who own clubs in the Premier League. Like, for the love of God, at least in other leagues, there is some sort of scrutiny. But
it says it all, and that's what the Premier League has become.
But it's it's fine because. Everyone sees it. More and more people, don't, buy. They lose more credibility.
The same goes to UEFA as well. I mean, the champions, the biggest, the best team in Europe or the best team in the world, Manchester City, because they've won the Champions League. They are the best team in Europe and the world now. Look, what we said. They've got 115 financial charges over the course of almost a decade.
They were also convicted of them by UEFA, but then they appealed to CAS, and lots of the charges were not. We're not.
And we know UEFA are not going to do anything. We've debated it. We've discussed it at length.
Just wanted to finish that. Many of those charges were under statute of limitations. They couldn't. UEFA couldn't do anything, and this just goes to show that this is how it is. And
if UEFA wanted to do something, they could, but they won't. And the thing is, the Premier League are not going to do anything. This is what football has become now, and this is why we supported a Super League, which has obviously taken a big blow this past week because Juventus are pulling out. But this is why we wanted a Super League because this is what football has become now. The Premier League, and by extension of that, football, because the Premier League are so dominant financially. It's become the playground of states and criminals and. There's no scrutiny. And I've said it before, if Hitler and Stalin were alive today and they wanted to buy a Premier League football club, they would be able to do so. Maybe not Stalin because he's Russian, but some other dictators or pick any of the Hall of Fame dictators from the past, they would be able to buy a Premier League football club.
And the Premier League would release a statement saying they have legal assurances that the dictator in question doesn't really control the football club.
That as well.
But which is hilarious.
I was talking to a friend the other day. Like, football today has basically become like supporting the dictator with the least kills. Like that. Like, I'm going to support this dictator because he's killed, a few million less than this dictator. That is basically what football at the highest level has become now.
This is why I wanted Donald Trump to buy Inter, to piss everybody off. It would be so much fun. Not because I'm aligned with him politically, but because he's crazy, and he comes in there and he creates headlines, and it would be absolutely hilarious to have him in the Serie A and to piss off. But that is
kind of the point, isn't it? That this is what football has become now. That in a way, it's become so much of a joke that this all goes on and is accepted.
Exactly.
That it's not even serious anymore. You almost can't take football seriously now. It's because, you're thinking, dictators, criminals, states are allowed to come in and basically run football. And you're thinking, what do we do about it? We can't do anything about it.
And there's no accountability to it either. And what they do whenever they do impose any accountability, it's always on those who aren't as important for UEFA's money for their purse strings, and so they make examples out of these clubs to pretend to maintain the illusion that there is actually a law in place, that there's everything's on the up and up, and then you have these others who get away with everything with murder essentially, and that's why the whole thing becomes doesn't become serious. No one can take it seriously, and it loses complete validity, and it loses all forms of, it just becomes a facade, and
that's exactly what it is. And what the sad thing is it's only going to get worse and worse. And this is kind of like this was with Italy having 3 teams in the final, but you can say the other 2 finals are not major competitions. It's all about the Champions League. But it's certainly having an Italian team in the final of the Champions League, I almost felt like, and I hope I'm wrong. Of course, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, of course. We both do.
I kind of felt like this was, a last breath, a last chance to kind of, let's win one before, there will be no chance ever again. Because the way that the financial gulf, and it's only going to widen and widen even more than it already is. I just felt like this is a one-off. This wasn't, when we had that cringeworthy advert that Capello and Lucatoni did of Serie A is back. It's not back. It's this is a one-off, and I hope I'm wrong. Of course, I hope I'm wrong, but I felt like this was an opportunity that Inter had to take, and this was an opportunity that Serie A had to take, because we're not going to get these opportunities really going forward again to win the Champions League, to have a dominant season where we win all the European competitions. It's not going to happen, is it, Nima?
No, I don't think so. As I've said all along, I think this is a one-off. And everything I've said, I think this is a one-off, and I'm afraid that we won't see it again for a long time. But it is what it is. But
because if you look ahead to next season, first of all, starting with Inter, do you see? Let's go through all the 4 Italian teams that are in the Champions League next season. So starting with Inter, do you see realistically? Do you see an Inter team or an Inter squad being stronger next season or weaker?
I think there is a good chance that they could. Inter's squad needs an overhaul in certain areas. This stopgap nonsense needs to stop. They need to have a serious project here. If that means rejuvenating and not fighting for the Serie A title and being okay for 1 or 2 seasons to do what Milan essentially did under Ricky Massara and Maldini, most Inter fans would be okay with that. But so I think yes, there is the chance there for Inter to do something. There really is.
Will they have to sacrifice a player?
Well, that's the thing. They will have to do that, because I think where they are now is they have 2 objectives. They no longer, I think, have to end on a net transfer gain this summer because of the way that they've because of the fact that they have made up a lot of money that they didn't expect to make. And so that covers a lot of potholes. This means essentially that their situation is 1 in, 1 out, or 1 out, 1 in, which means that they also have to reduce the wage bill, which means that you have to look at those who have the highest earners. And
so you're saying they can spend what they make? Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the expectation that everyone is, that everyone talking to is like, that's the feeling. It's not going to be another plus 40, plus 20, plus 60 or some stupid shit like that. It's going to be plus minus 0. That's the requirement. But they have to lower the wage bill, because no Italian team can maintain a wage bill of 130, 140 million euros gross per year. They just can't.
And in order to do that, they might have to sacrifice.
I think they will. I think they have to. You have to remember.
Who are we looking at?
Handanovic is leaving. Skriniar is leaving. Gagliardini is leaving. Dalbert is leaving. That creates, that's a lot of money already there that is going out. Then you have players out on loan who they're looking to sell. Then you have, Brozovic and Onana. And why I raise those 2 is because Onana came on a free transfer. Everything they sell him for is going to be a massive capital gains. So then you have, that's why he's a candidate. But I think that would be a mistake. I really think that would be a mistake, because of the fact that, and even Guardiola spoke about it after the game, that look, when you have Onana in you essentially, the way that he helps his passing, the way that he helps
build up. You can't be pressed. Yeah.
You can't press him, and his passing is fantastic. So and his accuracy is fantastic. So I think, I'd rather sell Brozovic than Onana. Not because I don't like Marcelo Brozovic, but because I look at how old he is. I look at his
Brozovic was
injury
fantastic
record.
in the final. I thought him and Acerbi were his two best players.
No, they were. Defensively, Marcelo Brozovic in games like this is just unbelievable. But again, we're talking about sacrificing here. Yeah. And if the sacrifice is that you get rid of Marcelo Brozovic, who's on around 11 million gross per year, and you get around 35 million euros for him, and you replace him with the same amount of money with Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, who also will make lower in terms of his wages, that's a no-brainer for me. That is a no-brainer. If it also means that you can replace Roberto Gagliardini with Stefano Sensi and say, look, Stefano, you got 1 year left on your contract. We want you to be a rotation player for 1 year, and no one else is coming in for you. I have no problem with that. That makes the midfield department sorted. If Inter can offload Robin Gosens and get Carlos Agosto from Monza, that offers something that Inter don't have. That's an improvement. And if they get rid of Denzel Dumfries, and if by some, they're able to bring in Raul Bellanova and also someone else for the right, if there was talk of Tejon Buchanan, younger player, with potential, with lower wages, and also you have the growth decree on his wages. Plus, you make a capital gains profit on Dumfries as well. That's a no-brainer. Like, these things are the things I would like to see Inter do. And then you go up front. Arrivederci Edin Dzeko. Arrivederci Joaquin Correa. Even though no one's going to buy him, send him out on loan, because that was a dud. This is how it's going to be. He's going to be at Inter. Yeah, Lukaku is only if he's willing and if Chelsea are willing to take him, accept a non-paid loan, which I think Inter have made clear. He's going back to Chelsea. If Chelsea want him to come back, which he wants it to do, then they have to play ball on Inter's terms, which means maybe a lower loan fee, and where a preponderance of his wages are paid by Chelsea. Inter can't afford to pay those huge salaries to him anymore. And Lautaro going to stay unless somebody pays like over 100 million euros for him, north of that. But I don't think anyone's going to do that. We'll see. And then you have, who do you bring in and replace Dzeko with? Well, loaning Scamacca, I think, is an intelligent move. There's talk of Balogun and Retegui is coming in as, on lower, loans and lower costs to replace Joaquin Correa. That to me looks like a team, that is already impressed, or that is already better. And then you go to the defense and you're thinking, well, Skriniar gone. Does D'Ambrosio extend or does he stay? I'm not entirely certain that D'Ambrosio extends. So you want to keep Acerbi, you're going to extend with De Vrij, you're going to extend with Bastoni, you're going to extend with Çalhanoğlu. This allows you to do that. Well, you still need to bring in someone to replace Milan Skriniar, and I think that's where the big investment is going to be this summer. Whether it's Pavard, whether it's Koulibaly. I personally prefer Pavard over Koulibaly because I think Koulibaly is on a decline, and I don't think he can play to the right of the back three. I think Inter needs someone to replace Skriniar, and I think Pavard is more of a natural replacement, and also he's younger. Again, rejuvenation. You can't just keep buying. Not this stopgap nonsense needs to stop.
If they get it right, they could potentially improve. We have to move on though because we've got so much else to talk about other than the Champions League final. But basically, to round up what I was going to say, I mean, Inter, it's going to be difficult to match or better what they've done this season. Lazio, I think if they get out of the group, they might lose Sergej Milinkovic-Savic as well. If they get out of the group, they would have done well.
There's talk of Jorginho and Berardi that are close. I mean, that would be fantastic if Jorginho came back to Italy and went to Lazio. If they're able to buy Domenico Berardi, I mean, that would be. That's
of course, but I think ultimately Lazio, the best we can hope for is them getting out of the group. We're not expecting much of Lazio. No. And if you're putting money on now, you're saying they're probably going to go out in the group stage. Yeah. Milan, we've seen everything that's happened at Milan in the last week, so you can't really be that hopeful.
No idea
with Milan.
Let's talk in August. That's all I'm going to say.
Let's talk in August, exactly. And Napoli, of course, are the best run club in Italy, and they've got they've had a magnificent season, but unfortunately they're going to lose Kim Min-jae. They might lose Osimhen. I think they will still be an excellent team, and I still see them having no issue getting out of the group. But I think they're going to be weaker than this season. The way that things stand at the moment, we'll see how they do in the transfer market, who becomes their new manager, who becomes their new sporting director if Giuntoli leaves. I mean, there's a lot of change again at Napoli, and it's not easy to sustain that every single year. This change, so much change, and losing your best players, losing your coach every year. And this is the problem that all Italian teams have. It's just not sustainable. Even if you have one amazing standout season like Napoli have had, you cannot sustain that every year when you become a feeder club and a feeder league, which is what Serie A has become. So it's going to be very, very difficult. And I just feel like this was our opportunity, maybe like one of our last opportunities to do this before, the big bad Premier League completely gobbles up everyone forever. So that's it. Let's move on in some sad news. So just before we started recording today, the news was confirmed that Silvio Berlusconi has died, aged 86, in Milan. He had recently spent 6 weeks in hospital at the San Raffaele Hospital, undergoing treatment for a lung infection, which was linked to him being. He's just recently been suffering with leukemia, and he was readmitted into hospital very recently in the last week, I think, or so. And unfortunately, sadly, he has passed away, aged 86. So, I mean, we're talking about an absolutely huge figure, not just in Italian football and in the football history of Milan, but in the history of the country of Italy in the last decades. And if we talk about from a football point of view, I mean, he was the owner of Milan from 1986 to 2017, and you cannot underestimate the impact that he had on Milan. He at the time of leaving Milan, selling Milan in 2017, he was the most successful president in the history of football anywhere in the world. 28 trophies.
Isn't it 29?
I don't know. I've seen some say 29. I counted 28, but I don't know if they're counting a little small trophy somewhere. But 28, 29. He was the most successful president in football history at the time. I'm not sure if Florentino Perez has overtaken him.
I think Florentino has overtaken him.
Yeah, he might have done since then. But at the time of leaving Milan in 2017, he was the most successful. And, what he did at Milan was unbelievable. I mean, he bought a club that was on the verge of bankruptcy. It's a club that had been, he bought them in 1986, as I said, but they'd been in Serie B. They'd twice been relegated into Serie B earlier on in the 80s. One for the match, the Totonero match fixing scandal. But then the second time actually was on merit. It was actually for the field of play through not being a very good football team. So he turned them into the best team in Italy within a couple of years. They won the 1988 Scudetto, and then he made them the best team in Europe in 1989 when they won the first European Cup of his tenure. And he built, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, the best club football team that we've ever seen in football history. I mean, his team that he had under Sacchi, Enrico Sacchi, the three Dutchmen, Van Basten, Rijkaard, and Hullet, and then that amazing all-Italian defence, Maldini, Baresi, Tassotti, Costacurta. I mean, for me, that's the best club team we've ever seen, and they won 2 European Cups in a row in 89 and 90, and it took almost 3 decades, I think it's from Madrid, for anyone else to win 2 in a row. And under Berlusconi, they reached 5 finals in 7 years during that spell, and in total, during his time in Milan, 8 Champions League finals at Milan, and winning 5 of them. And, so, I mean, the success that he brought to Milan was absolutely unbelievable, wasn't it, Nima?
Well, together on the football pitch, what he and Adriano Galliani and Braida did was truly, truly remarkable. They were, we got to keep it honest here, and intellectually honest here too. Before there were any, he was one of the first to really set in motion the wheels of what became the modern football Moneyball game of financial doping when there wasn't such a thing, when it was okay, completely legal.
When there were no rules, yeah.
There were no rules whatsoever. He was one of the first to set it in motion, and because of the fact that he used that success to launch his political career, becoming the Prime Minister of Italy for many, many years, becoming one of the longest serving Prime Ministers in Italian history, many other people opened their eyes to understanding what sports washing really was, and in football at least. I mean, of course, it existed before, but at this level, he was one of the instigators of that, and we should not be dishonest about that.
No, and we shouldn't be dishonest about, obviously you don't want to speak ill of the dead, and not when they've
well,
only
I
just
do.
died.
I don't care.
We don't want, you don't, in general, you don't want to speak ill of the dead in general, but, he was mired in a lot of scandals, political scandals, sex scandals, underage bunga bunga parties, very shady business. I mean, the secret societies. I mean, you name it.
His connections to the Sicilian Cosa Nostra Mafia. I mean, just Google Vittorio Mangano. Just Google Marcello De Lutri, who these people were. I mean, Vittorio Mangano was hired. was officially hired as a gardener and a stableman at Berlusconi's Villa San Martino in Arcore, but he didn't do much gardening there. Let's just put it that way.
Well, maybe certain types of gardening.
Yeah,
maybe.
Well, exactly. A little trim.
Depending on depending how deep you want to dig, let's say.
Exactly.
How far down the rabbit hole you want to go.
No, but seriously, like if you look into the people that he had connections with, if you look at him being convicted, how he used the Italian legislature and the government to harm the government by making Italian law so much more bizarre that we see the results of it now with statute of limitations, and using it for his own interests, is from a political point of view. And I'm not even talking about the sex scandals, because I know people love that stuff, but the other stuff I think that he did was far more bad, if we're perfectly honest. The fact that he made it okay to use the state to serve himself, and enrich himself privately. He was one of the first in the West to do that, so openly and blatantly and brazenly and unashamed, like just in your face. But if we, that's his
influence on Italian society for good and for bad. Television, for example. I mean, he was so far ahead of everyone in terms of, modern TV. Whether you like it or not, the way that he used sex to sell TV. I mean, you still see it today on Italian TV, Italian football TV. We still see it. You see. You have a talk show to talk about football, and you generally have a very attractive young model or showgirl or whatever you want to call her, that just basically sits there and looks nice. It sells. Literally. It sells. And that is he was a very big influence on that on that side of things. But he understood how to be successful, and he was incredibly successful. If we want to look at the football side of things, yes, you're absolutely right. He spent heavily. I don't think it's comparable to, say, the level of spending that we see today in the Premier League, because back then there weren't rules in terms of financial fair play rules, but back then there were rules like there was 3 EU players, for example. You could only have 3 foreigners. Well, actually, at the start it was 2. In the 1980s, it was 2. Then they increased it to 3 in the late 80s. That means that you couldn't go out and just buy every single hoard and have all the best players in the world. It was impossible. You could only have the 3 best foreigners. You could still go out and buy the best Italian players, but all the big Italian clubs had riches back then. Yes, Berlusconi was the richest of them all, but they were all super rich. We saw the teams like Udinese buying Dzeko, Napoli buying Maradona. Milan were the best team in the best league that there's ever been. So back then, it was still very impressive what he's done, and a lot more impressive than I don't think it's comparable to what football has become now with the Premier League, because now there are the principle is the same, the details are different. That's fair enough, but we shouldn't be hypocritical about that. He kind of started pretty much, he laid the groundwork for. He wrote the playbook for how you use football in the modern context to further a political agenda.
He was
No,
one of
and
the
he was very
first
big in the
that.
Champions League, the actual form
He
of the
understood
Champions League.
that internationally it meant that
Yeah.
he was one of the first to understand that, yes, okay, winning the Serie A is great, but when you do it on an international stage, when everyone is watching from all over the world, that's when it matters. And he
Again,
was,
yeah, that's why he became such a big influence on
yeah,
also on Milan being the most successful Italian
yeah,
team in Europe, because
yeah,
there was that feeling, even in Italy at the time, for a long time, probably up until Berlusconi, where
yeah,
many people in Italy actually would rather win Serie A, winning the
yeah,
Scudetto, than winning the Champions League or the
yeah,
European Cup, as it was
yeah,
known then, because it was that was, they considered that the bigger tournament,
yeah,
and Berlusconi kind of helped to change those attitudes, and obviously Milan's success under him in the Champions League was just unbelievable, and they had so many great teams. I mean, not just that Sacchi team, but the Capello team that won the European Cup and reached 3 finals in a row. The Ancelotti team that reached 3
Ancelotti team.
finals in 5 years. I mean, just name some of the players they had and some of the games, the legendary games. I mean, thrashing Real Madrid 5-0 in the 1989 European Cup semi-final at San Siro, the 4-0 over Steaua Bucharest in the final, the 4-0 over Cruyff's dream team in the 94 final in Athens, when everybody thought that Barcelona were going to destroy Milan in that final. Milan were decimated in defence. They had no Baresi or Costa Curta. They come on and they destroy them 4-0. And then all the way down to beating Man United 3-0 in 2007. The 6-0 over Inter, Nima, which you probably want to forget. I mean, so many
I haven't
legendary
forgotten
games.
that at all. I haven't forgotten that at all. I mean, we got partly our revenge back on the Euro derby that Inter won now, because we lost a couple of Euro derbies against his Milan. And look, Milan were unbelievable then. There's no doubt about that. He built a structure. He understood the importance of media in sports. One of the first to do so in the world, in football, in the footballing world. And that's why Milan have historically always been so good with the media and know how to get by, quote unquote, without paying positive coverage.
Yeah.
When you take care of every
Well, it
player.
helps when your president is the prime minister.
Yes, but not just that. Even before that, this notion, that understanding that if you buy a star from one country, that you have to have a relationship with the media of that country.
No, absolutely. I'm just saying it helps when you've got the influence of being the prime minister or being controlling Italian TV.
Look, he said not just that, he controlled 90% of the Italian media at one point when he was in government. And also, let's remember that he used to say that when Milan wins on the weekend, parliamentary proceedings are far more easier on a Monday. Like this this is who he was. He embodied that, and he lived it, and he didn't, and that's just, again, it's a complex character.
And some of the quotes he's come out with over the years as well. I mean, some of the stuff he's come up with, some of the videos of him. I mean, just Google Silvio Berlusconi quotes. I mean, there's so many.
There's so much stupid.
I don't know what is my favourite at all. I mean,
I think Pullman Pieno di Troia is out there. That one of his last ones with Monza.
Yes,
the bus full of prostitutes is.
If they beat Juventus,
they beat one of the big.
They beat them twice, didn't
Milan,
they? They beat them twice this season.
I'll turn up to the dressing room with a bus full of prostitutes. It's just unbelievably. It's just.
In this time of extreme political correctness that we're seeing, I don't think Berlusconi fits into this world very much. Some of the stuff that he's come out with. I remember when he said that the Chinese used to eat babies. Do you remember that?
He had to apologize for that. Yeah, he had to say, he said lots of racist.
Obama had a good tan. He said once. I remember that. I mean, he's come up with so much stuff. But from a footballing point of view, one of the giants of football, not just Italian football, one of the giants of all football. So, Silvio Berlusconi, aged 86, passed away today. Okay, right. Very quickly, the playout was played on Serie A. Playout was played on Sunday evening. It finished Spezia 1, Verona 3. So Spezia are relegated. It was a thrilling game. This game, absolutely thrilling. It was 3-1 at half time. But with midway through the second half, Spezia got a penalty and Verona got a red card, and they had 23 minutes to basically get the game back, but they missed the penalty. Unzola missed the penalty, and they had chance after chance after chance after that. The ball just wouldn't go in, and Yeah, Spezia are down. So the three teams that are relegated are Sampdoria, Cremonese, and Spezia. And the three promoted teams are Frosinone, Genoa, and Cagliari, who scored with a 94th minute winner from Pavoletti to return to Serie A. And Claudio Ranieri is the manager of Cagliari. Over 3 decades after being in Serie A with Cagliari, he gets them up. I mean, that's an incredible story as well. So, yeah, it was quite a thrilling night, wasn't it?
No, it was. It was a thrilling game, and I think in the end, the right team got relegated. I think Hellas Verona showed that as far as a team goes, they are a better side than Spezia. I thought they deservedly avoided relegation. And they, again, we want the Serie A to, with all the problems it's got, we need to have the popular sides up, quote unquote. And Verona has a bigger fan base than Spezia has ever had and never will have. And they, the game itself was just as good as it gets when we're talking relegation scraps in the Serie A. It was complete chaos, and red cards and penalty misses, and it was just it was so entertaining. But with Spezia out, we have to talk about the Salvatore Esposito, who the Esposito family had an absolute shocking night.
Terrible night.
Sebastiano with Bari, and Bari were literally 2 minutes away from Serie A, because the Serie A playoff final works like this, that once they play each other in the final, the playoff teams, the team with a higher finish, if it ends in a draw, gets promoted. And in the 94th minute, Pavoletti scores. And a packed San Nicola, fantastic atmosphere at that.
They did a lap of honour before the game with the bus, I saw, as well.
And look, I think of course Francesco Esposito, the younger one as well. What's his name?
Pio Esposito.
Yeah. Well, he was. He lost, of course,
the Under-20 World Cup final, which we'll come on to
as well. Yeah. So no, look, I think Nicolau, Enzola, Esposito, there's going to be some.
They're good enough for Serie A teams, definitely. Unzola,
Francesco Pio.
It wasn't his night, Unzola, at all.
No,
he just didn't want to go in for him. But I do think that there's a player that certainly for a big Serie A team as a backup player, I think definitely could do a job, if not be a starter for one of the Europa League kind of standard teams. Certainly, he's good enough to play for most Serie A teams in some capacity, and then I think the other two as well. And it's going to be an interesting.
But we have to give a shout out to Claudio Ranieri, who's now back in Serie A after bringing his Cagliari, which he did like thousands of years ago, almost, it feels like, when he brought them twice up to the Serie A. And now at the age of 71, if I'm not mistaken, he brings them back to the Serie A. And also when Cagliari fans were mocking Bari fans, saying, oh, you're going to play in Serie B next year, he goes up to them and tells them to stop it, which just shows what a classy man this man has always been.
We're talking about gentleman. There is no more.
Always been a gentleman in his career. And that was just beautiful to see.
Yeah. It was. Okay, just to finish off with the Under-20 World Cup final, fourth final for Italy in the last fortnight or so, and Italy lose it again. They lost 1-0 to Uruguay. Italy went into this final as favourites, and they'd had a fantastic tournament. They'd beaten Brazil, the pre-tournament favourites, in the first game. They beat England, the 2017 winners, weren't it? Was it 2017 they won it when they had Foden and everyone? They beat England 2-1, and they played fantastically against Colombia, who are a dangerous team, in the quarterfinals. Then they beat Korea in the semi-finals. Pafundi scored a magnificent goal, and they've had so many fantastic performers in this World Cup. I mean, the obvious ones are Baladanzi, Pafundi, and of course Cesare Casadei, who was named the best player of the tournament, top scorer of the tournament, 8 goals, absolutely had an incredible tournament. These three have been great. There have been so many other really fantastic performers. Palatti in midfield, central midfielder, Giovane, who has done really, really well in midfield and at left back. This final, I don't know what happened. They were. I mean, I don't want to be too critical of youngsters. Italy were awful. They were absolutely awful from minute 1 to minute 90. They were totally outplayed, completely outplayed. I think they had one shot in the entire game. Italy, one shot on goal, none on target in the entire game. Uruguay completely outplayed them. They outfought them. They pressed them high. They couldn't even barely get out of their half. Italy. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they were tired because 3 days ago they played the semi-final. The pitch was shocking. The pitch was not worthy of a World Cup final at any level. Wasn't even worthy of Sunday League football. It was that bad. It was like a potato pitch. It was embarrassing. I'm sure that didn't help. It probably helped Uruguay a little bit more. Maybe the fact that the game was in Argentina. It's only a short journey to watch the game. The Uruguay were basically playing a home game. They had a lot of their fans in the stadium. Maybe that helped. I don't know what happened. It looked like they bottled it. It looked like the pressure got to them completely. I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving enough credit to Uruguay. They had some really interesting players.
No, they did. But I think Uruguay showed that they deservedly won this game. I thought they were better than Italy throughout this game. And even the Italy coach after the game said that from a physical point of view, Uruguay were in a much better condition than we were. We were tired. He thanked all the youngsters, saying it's been a fantastic tournament. Nobody expected us to get to this point or play at this level. And I agree with him. I just didn't think Italy were just not ever in the fun. They were just scrapping on and hanging on, and they were tired and they were sluggish. And now I feel Uruguay won deservedly. Credits to them. Italy had 0 shots on goal this game. Let's just basically put it out. The Italy were basically hanging on for dear life throughout this game, and there was nothing there. And I think that for me, I'm very positively surprised. I did not expect Italy to do this well. I love that goalkeeper they've got. I think he's a quality.
He was the only one in the final that performed. He made some miracle saves.
He was
in the final.
So good. No, but not just this tournament as well. I thought he was without a doubt the best goalkeeper in this tournament. Uruguay had the best defense. I think, what was it, 6 out of 7 clean sheets?
They only conceded in one game.
Yeah. So they were outstanding. But in terms of goalkeepers and for the saves he made, I think the Italy kid was just outstanding. And as for the players, I know Casadei was announced the best player of the tournament. For me, Baldanzi was better this tournament. I thought he was better. I think Casadei showed still why he's, there's a difference between youth and senior level football. There is a quality player there, of course. If you become the top goal scorer from a midfield position, that's a fantastic quality to have, and that's something that is his absolute strength. But there is still, all of them kind of have improvement to do. But for me, Alan Maturro and Baldanzi showed that they play first team football. They play senior team football. I thought they were fantastic. Those two over through this tournament, and played with a maturity that you don't really see at this level.
I think Casadei was a magnificent tournament. I do wonder how much of it is down to the fact that physically this guy's a beast already. That I do think that I think that's definitely played a role. I mean, he was at Reading last season. He was a first team player at Reading in the Championship. And let's not forget the Championship is a very high level. If we're talking about best leagues in Europe, it's top 10 in Europe. There's a lot of quality in the English Championship. He's already been playing first team football, but I do think the physical advantage that he had on a lot of players certainly played a role. But one thing we can say about Casadei is he's got an incredible shot. He's fantastic in the air. But I think his best attribute is something that can't be taught. You cannot teach people this, is his understanding of making late runs into the box, getting in the right areas, and then finishing. He's a fantastic finisher as well. I think he's very similar to Frank Lampard, definitely. I know he's been compared to him, but he's got all the attributes that Frank Lampard had. He's got. We'll see how far he can go. I do think that, absolutely. On a technical level, let's see how he does, because I think maybe his short game, you can see that there needs to be some improvement there in the short game, and the advantages physically that he's had over youth players, he won't have over men. But magnificent tournament for him, and I think ultimately youth football is not so much about winning. It's about developing good, quality players. And Italy have had some really, really, very, very promising talents that have emerged in this tournament. Casadei is one of them. Baldanzi we know about, but those other names that I mentioned as well. So that is a big positive. It's just frustrating that Italy lose another final. And I just think, if I just want to make one general point, is that Italy have such a bad record in finals, certainly over recent years, both the clubs and the national team. I was doing a little bit of an adding up before, and since 2010, when Inter won the Champions League final, in club football, the major European club tournaments, I think I didn't count wrongly, that Italy Serie A have been to 9 finals and only won 2 of them. And then obviously, international level as well with the youth tournaments, we've lost quite a few finals as well. But even if you go further back, I believe that Serie A, no one has lost more finals than Serie A clubs. I don't know what it is. There just seems to be we always seem to do well in semi-finals. We always seem to perform well in semi-finals, but when it gets to the finals, I don't know. We don't seem to win enough finals. I don't know if it's just a coincidence over the years, but certainly in recent years, maybe it's more down to the quality that Serie A and Italian football has gone down a bit. But I don't know what it is. If it's become a little bit of a mental issue now, but we don't win enough finals. We lose too many finals, and that has been, I guess, in May or the last month, that has been the story of Italian football in the last few weeks, isn't it? Just losing finals.
Yes, but I mean, this follows the summer of 2021 when Italy won everything that they could win, from athletics to Eurovision to the Euros to everything else. And so this is, this comes...
right, I'm talking football, but yeah.
But generally speaking, like this, I feel somehow that I think it's... I'm not too surprised just yet. I think somehow this kind of is an accurate description of where Italian football is. It's close. There's lots of exciting things happening, but they're not quite there yet. And I think that's a good place to be, because Italians are the best in the world at congratulating each other when they win and pat each other on the back. And the last thing Italian football needs is more patting of themselves on the back. They need to improve and they need to do good. So I think in the long run, this is good for Italian football that they finished so close on all fronts. It means work harder. Your Calcio is not back, as they were that ridiculous commercial they were pushing. No, Calcio is not back in any shape, size, or form.
Sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger there.
Yeah, they need to understand that. Calcio is not back, and I think it's good for Italy to go a little bit hungry than being a little bit overfed. And Italian football needs to work hard, and I hope that they do.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, finish off with Bad Joe and Prem Face of the Week. Bad Joe, who you got? I've got one.
Go for it then.
I'm going for you. I'm going for your TalkSport interview.
Stop.
But in 3 years of the Italian Football Podcast, Nima is the Bad Joe of the Week for the first time, and probably the last time.
Hopefully for the last time.
I'm never giving him credit ever again. So please, everybody, listen to Nima's interview. Was it Friday you did this, or was it Thursday evening? It was.
I can't remember.
I think it might have been Thursday evening, but you shared it with me on Friday, or I listened to it on Friday.
Yeah, I didn't even. It wasn't like they just dropped me a message and say, "Hey, would you like to come on? We want to preview the final." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. When? Tonight? Yeah, okay, cool." In a couple of hours, and I said, "Fine." And so I went on there, and yeah, they this is the funny part. Hugh Wisencraft actually asked me a question. He said, if I was an Inter fan living in the UK and consuming English media, I would be a bit offended with how Inter Milan are portrayed, which to me is a very honest characterization of facts and how things are. And I just replied to that honestly and factually. And then somebody who I'd never heard of until you explained who he was, lost his was completely debilitated. He was completely triggered, as if
he was just rude, and he come across as somebody that's a bully, which is what I've heard from people I've spoken to in the industry, that he's a bully, and he picked on the wrong person.
Yeah, he did bark up
on the wrong person.
Yeah, we barked up the wrong tree, and so I was like, and then I know this isn't my first rodeo. I've had to debate with people like this, not just in football but in politics and other areas. So I know what they try to. I know their MO. I know how they love to turn everything into sideshows and red herrings, and I don't let them. I stay on point. And I said it. I never mentioned English fans because I would never generalize people based on nationality. That's just not who I am. I was talking about certain members of the English mainstream media. And that is just an objective fact. That's not even an opinion. They have this attitude, and everybody on earth knows it, except for them, or except for Martin Samuel in this case, who pretends that it's rubbish, and try to talk with a Cockney accent.
I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah, talk with a Cockney accent to make himself more, working class and approachable, when in fact he's anything but. But this is what they do. It's the oldest trick in the book, and I just don't. I'm again. This is my first rodeo, so even if I wasn't prepared for that kind of overreaction and emotional meltdown, it wasn't difficult for me to just basically dismantle what he had to say because it was so nonsensical what he said.
I love it when you were like, really.
I mean, no. Why would I get upset? I mean, when you're dealing with a flat earther, which essentially that is, denying facts, objective empirical facts that everyone knows to be true, then you just got to be like, okay, right, and then just continue hammering home your point with facts, and that's what I did, and it was weird. It was a weird interaction, and I thought it was a bit sad because I really actually the other two, Darren
Lewis, really nice. They seem really
Darren
respectful.
Lewis is an absolute gentleman, who works among others for CNN and the Mirror. He is an absolute class gentleman who's always so respectful and polite. And Hugh is a nice guy as well whenever I've had to deal with him. So, they were lovely people, and they are lovely people, very professional. But this guy just got really triggered, and I thought it was funny. It was very, very, very funny. But yeah, I didn't even share it. This is the funny thing. I was like, oh, that was just weird and awkward. So I went about my day, and then I sent it to you. I was like, yeah, I was wondering if you want to listen to it. And then you clipped it up and
made it go viral.
Yeah, basically. It was very, very funny.
Yeah, everybody loved it. Everyone loved it. So many people said, especially kind of like Italian football fans living in England or in English speaking countries, said, you just reflected everything that I feel. Basically, that was the overwhelming. But the way that it was delivered, I mean, like you were just like bang straight in there. Your opening.
You don't miss about. You don't miss
your
about.
Your opener was brilliant, and then at your ending, it was just like mic drop at the end, which I won't tell everyone. Please listen to the ending, the way that Nima finishes the interview, and it's magnificent. So yeah, you're my badger of the week.
Thanks for that. No, I don't.
Do you have a Prem face?
Yes,
I guess Martin Samuel.
Well, not just him, but he can't even be that because Steve Nicole on ESPN.
No! What did he say now?
Well, the usual nonsense about how he's saying that pre-match he said Inter wasn't going to get any more 30% of the possession, and then afterwards the game just changed his tune, saying, "Oh, it was City who were bad. Inter did nothing special," and just kept banging on and shitting on Inter, which all of them do, because they have no respect. They don't have any respect for anything and anyone, and it's okay because everybody sees through it. And this is the kind of nonsense that I was referring to. That
I don't think it comes from a bad place with Nico. I think he's just quite simple, isn't he? He doesn't watch any football. You can tell he doesn't watch any football other than maybe a few Premier League games. Liverpool, he's a former Liverpool player. He doesn't really watch much football, and he doesn't really care. Which you get with a lot of pundits. Like they don't care about watching the football. Burley, you can tell like he genuinely hates Italian football. You can see it. Like he has so much hate in him. So it's just what it is, isn't it?
Nah, lascia stare, lascia perdere. They are a laughing joke, and they really are a global laughing joke with everyone who's not in the bubble. And that's why I thought it was funny. For me, it was like, it's nice to inject a dose of reality into the bubble every now and again, simply because they are so used to hearing this, to living in an echo chamber, that whenever somebody actually injects a bit of reality into their little bubble, they don't know how to act. They just lose their shit, and they just, it's like their world is collapsing. It's like,
absolutely,
it's so, and that is so entertaining.
I always find it incredible how these kind of people, especially in the mainstream media, get so offended when they're ideologically challenged, when they've got this ideological view of the world about everything, not just in football. And obviously in football, it is the Premier League is the best in the world, that, we're not like this, like what Martin Samuel was saying, but anything, like have an ideological view. And if you just happen to have a view that is not the same as their, they get so triggered by it as if like it's the end of the world. And it's just like, I just have a different
They have
view to
no
you.
self-awareness.
I just have a different view to you than you have. What is the big deal?
They don't have, they have no self-awareness whatsoever. And they're so arrogant and up their own butts that whenever you inject just a tiny bit of reality and another perspective based on actual reality, they don't know how to react. They literally just panic. And it's incredibly entertaining.
No.
And it's funny, but it is what it is. It was just.
Well, it's like when after Inter went through. Do you remember I put out that tweet predicting all the things that was going to be said?
Everything happened.
Every single thing happened, because once you know the narrative, and once you know the result, you know what the game is going to be.
Yeah.
You already know. Once you followed them for so long, how they behave, everything is the same. You know exactly what's going to come before. And what's going to come after. We knew after the final they were going to say that it was because Manchester City played badly. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, Manchester City did play badly, but it was also because Inter were outstanding tactically. But I mean, they don't understand that these nuances. But that's not what they work. They're after clicks and hits and spreads and the turning it's as if anything that has some traits of intellectual discussion and discourse is like kryptonite to these people. It's like, it literally is like that Chris Rock thing about kryptonite, to put your money in your books, because that's knowledge is kryptonite. That's how it is to these people. Knowledge, facts, and in any form of intellectual discourse is kryptonite to
and
these
being
people.
proud of it as well.
And proud of their
being
stupidity.
Proud to be ignorant.
Proud to be dumb. Proud to be stupid. Proud to be simple and a simpleton. So no, it's fun, but we go again.
Yeah, sure do. Okay, right, let's leave it at that. We will be back on Tuesday for the Q&A, Thursday for our first transfer show of the summer. And yes, like I said before, we will be doing this throughout the summer, but we also have a lot of international football coming up. The under-21 Euros starting next week, and the Nations League coming up this week as well. Italy are playing against Spain in the semi-final, which I believe... Is it on Wednesday? Is it Wednesday this week? Let me just double check that before we say goodbye. Because they're in the semis of the Nations League. I believe the Inter players are going to join up with the next on Thursday. This Thursday. Yeah. This Thursday evening. Spain versus Italy in I think it's in the Netherlands. Yes, it's in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's leave it at that. Have a good week, everyone. We will see you next time. Ciao, ciao.